Hey everyone, this is Andy. This is the Coffee with a Geek program. It is, it's July 2018. With me is an amazing guest, and I really mean that as always, but Jaime Donally is my guest today. And I do have my coffee. This is Tim Hortons, which is a local brand here. I've talked about it quite a bit. Jaime is with me, and if you don't know Jaime's work, it's really pretty incredible. And just to tell you a little bit about her background, she started as a math teacher and went into technology integration from there. And correct me if I'm wrong, Jaime, on that. So far, so good?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, and I'm just going to share my screen, and I'm going to show Jaime's website. So if you want to follow Jaime first, you can go to Twitter at Jaime Donally, pretty quick and easy. And this is her website, and I really love this website, nice and dynamic, and we'll talk maybe a little more and dig into it, but all kinds of great stuff about AR, VR. Obviously, there is a blog section within here that has some good stuff. You can learn about Jaime in here. Let me just go show you the blog quickly. Come on, blog. There we go, and with some good swag. I love that t-shirt, really nice. You can learn more about Jaime here. You can also learn about her latest book. I love how you've got the goggles on there. Was that an ISTE picture there?
It is 2 years ago.
Oh, nice. And we'll talk about Jaime's book and how you can get it. But more importantly, just, Jaime has lots of great ideas. So let's dig in there. So first things first, Jaime, let me just back out of the sharing mode here. So welcome. Thank you so much for joining me, Jaime. And Jaime, can you just tell me, I just mentioned briefly you were a math teacher. Now you're in tech integration and you do keynotes and all kinds of fun stuff. You do workshops for teachers, but let's maybe back up. And if you could just maybe fill in all the gaps for me about your kind of journey through educational technology to where you are today.
Yeah, thank you again so much for having me. I'm getting a little bit now somehow.
Okay, I'm going to.
There we go. So just to give you a little bit, you got so far in my journey that it's continued past there actually. So started off really not a great student. I was not the kind of student that was like, focused on grades or focused on excelling. I pretty much got by with the bare minimum to either pass or to do the things that I wanted to do, like sports. And then went to college and started going to school, really again tied into athletics and the things that I was doing there. And then decided to go for my master's degree in education because I wanted to homeschool my kids, which would have been a complete disaster, by the way. So I'm glad I didn't take that journey. But in that program, recognizing how different my kids were and how what I needed to give them required such diversity from different talents and skill levels. And for me, one of the parts of the program was getting in and doing some student teaching. So getting a chance to actually get in the classroom. At the time, I was coaching sports and then went into, teaching the kids just on that end of the student teaching just to finish my degree. And then found that I absolutely loved it. How do teachers get paid for coming and being crazy and awesome and having a blast with kids all day? I felt like teaching brought out this different part of me. And to be quite honest, I think about being back in the classroom all the time because it was just one of those opportunities to be with kids and the impact they have on you, the impact you can have on their lives. It's just amazing. So technology's always been a piece of this though. And this journey, I've always been captivated by the opportunities that we have with technology. While I was in the classroom, there was a position that came open with instructional technology in my district that I was in at the time. And it was just, I remember kind of struggling. Do I apply? Do I not apply? Because I really thought I had the cake position. I was a math teacher, but I was doing RTI, so response to intervention. So it was like no real strict guidelines. Like I get to build my own curriculum. Like it was the best job. It was like the best hidden secret ever. Plus, I love working with the kids that struggle, whereas GT, I have no patience for. So I'm like the exact opposite. But I feel like I can relate to their journey too, and maybe not being super, prepared for school or not really caring about success because that wasn't really a huge push in my life. And so understanding kind of where they're coming from. But, with technology, I felt like there was that missing element that I really loved, but never got a chance to jump into as a math teacher because I didn't have the tools and the resources available. So I ended up, getting the position, instructional technology, and then from there going to conferences and just, my whole world kind of opened up on the technology side. But right away, immediately was immersed into this augmented reality session in my local region. And like the next day, I'm presenting in my district, like, we got to get this in the classroom, like being so pumped. But from there, I have worked in several different school districts as under instructional technology. Also had an opportunity to go work for a company, an educational company, where I was putting my content in on the video side. Have recently this summer have decided to go out full-time consulting on my own. So now I am completely just working with school districts and companies and conferences, and just providing the immersive technology, as well as hosting some virtual events and things of that sort. So really just kind of taken me on this other journey. And right now, immersive technology is a hot topic. It's a huge need about where people get started. And I think the book was something just to kind of lay it out there. It's an easy read. I'm no writer, okay? I never intended to make this like some, highly technical book. But what I wanted to do was really just lay that foundation of how to get started, and really just from my experience of, implementation and things people haven't considered that I didn't consider at the beginning of the journey, and what I learned along the way, but really given the lesson plans and the tools. And so it's just been this crazy, awesome augmented and virtual reality journey along the way as well.
I want to come back to, talking about AR and VR and dig a little deeper into that. Before I do, though, I've asked this to a few math teacher friends that I've interviewed or just talked to. And do you think, math teachers, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, are often kind of reluctant to dig into technology because, still a lot of the teaching is pencil, paper, which, I think is valuable technology. Do you find that and with your fellow math teachers, and what made you go to such a high-end technology where you are now?
That's a really great question. I think that when we're talking about immersive technology, it sounds really scary. It sounds like, I got to be very techy. And I think the book really challenges that. I hope it challenges people to know that my goal in all of this was really setting it very crystal clear that it doesn't take a techie to do this. It's going to be a student that grabs it for the first time and really incorporates these tools. So while I have great friends that are doing amazing things on the development side and really those high-end devices, my passion for sharing this has always been at the base level, where it's not a technology that should be scary, that it's something that easy to implement. So really just kind of getting people aware of those tools is the first step. But as a math teacher, what I realized was there was a lot of funding because of, where math grades, math scores was such a high demand. So you have science and math and language arts. You had these core classes where there was a lot of money thrown at them, and oftentimes it was pushed into the realm of technology. So how are they going to spend their money? Oh, this technology. And this technology is going to fix all of our scores. So I feel like, all teachers have been kind of thrown into that world too. But I think when it comes to math teachers, they've had a lot of push towards having to use this new different technologies to improve test scores, essentially, which is kind of sad. But I think that what I've run across is that most of the people that are going to embrace it at first are going to be your instructional technologists in your districts, or the people that easily adapt that technology, are out looking, going to conferences and eager about the edtech world. But then they bring it back to their districts and really just kind of set schools up with success, that correct implementation. And if it's done correctly, it can be super successful. And I think that's where sometimes we have a fail. There's this enthusiasm and excitement, which is a good thing. I'd rather it be towards, we're ready to jump in head first than not jump in at all. But they're jumping in head first without really coming up with all of the steps to help that be successful. So you kind of walk away with like, this is just wow, we're left with just the wow. Where's, the benefit of this technology? Where are we really going to see this impact our kids? So I think that there's a lot of pieces to that, and some great collaboration that has to come from all parties. But math teachers in general probably are not that one resistant, but they're definitely the ones that don't get the benefit as much from AR and VR. I want to say that's one of the hardest subjects to find resources in augmented and virtual reality. So while maybe the need is not there, or the benefit isn't as easily identified, such as going on, different tours around the world, social studies is an easy connect for that. Science experiments are an easy connect for some of the augmented reality, or seeing life, maybe plants come to life, or different things that we can see on many different subjects. But when it comes to math, it's a lot of paper and pencil type concept, right? Where it's harder to see like where are the benefits of visually seeing something come to life in augmented reality, or be layered in our world, or going to see something that we could not understand with the way we already do that.
So I was at the ISTE conference this year, and maybe it's because I was looking for it, but I found that there was a lot of augmented and virtual reality showcases. I think, from the vendor floor to a lot of the presentations I was seeing, Oculus Go, and I was seeing some things, especially, the Microsoft booth had a lot of augmented or virtual reality as well as augmented. I also saw at the Google, booth, they were doing some augmented virtual reality stuff. Do you think now in education we're coming close to that tipping point where it's going to start spilling into schools, or are we still kind of at that, wow, this is neat, but it still needs some more development?
Yeah, that's a great question. 2 years ago, I was sharing on virtual reality in education, and it was like crickets. There's nothing out there. I remember talking to a lot of, some Sony and Unity and some of those companies that were like, hey, like, we'd love to have this conversation, like, we're ready to go. But then just seeing like that it really just had not come to where it is today. Seeing ISTE this year, I think, we had so many booths that were incorporating immersive technology. We definitely had a ton more sessions that were talking about these things. Just to see this transition from where it was just 2 years ago to where it was this past summer is phenomenal to me. It's showing this huge growth. And you know what? I'm not going to say that I'm a huge fan of Google Expeditions, but it helped get people aware of the technology that's available through virtual reality in education. They made this connection and this tie-in to something that is available, and that awareness helped people to see the possibilities in education. We had even Pokemon Go, just the fact that came out, and maybe that wasn't an academic tool, and maybe that's not a tool that I like to use, but it is something that helped give an awareness of what augmented reality is. And so bringing these things into light in our world helped move this forward. And I think we're going to continue to see it grow. There's definitely some data that's showing. I mean, the reason why I even started looking at virtual reality is I was looking at the numbers. I was looking to see what was invested by the companies in order to start this, process of VR, period, through entertainment, through gaming, through any of these other options, right? But, when it comes to education, I knew it would hit us because once it hits those other avenues, we eventually catch up here in education. So just watching the numbers that were invested alone helped me kind of take a second look and say, wait a minute. And it was, there's been so much that have happened since then. And getting, sharing out on VR for a while now, but just to see how quickly it's adapting, I think helps us recognize that it's more than just a wow. We definitely have something available to us that we should be making available to our students for their learning.
So for those who aren't familiar yet, and again, it is a relatively new technology, can you give maybe a quick, your own definition of augmented reality and virtual reality, and then maybe give what are your favorite go-to tools right now that you're looking at for both kind of platforms, AR and VR?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question because I'll see them interchanged still, where it's kind of like people call something AR, call something VR. Even in apps, sometimes you see companies making apps that is like they're calling it the wrong thing. I think that's okay because we're calling out something in technology that's very specific when reality is one day we're just going to call it technology. We're not going to specify what kind of technology, just like we don't talk about every aspect in our phones and how it functions. Every time we're not calling it facial recognition, or AI, it's just technology. So to some extent, that's okay, but the goal is to recognize what's available and how to utilize that. So it's good to know those terms. But AR, augmented reality, I'm going to have to get my good friend Mary Alice to laugh with me on this one because she calls it augmentative reality. So she really has messed me up now. But okay, so augmented reality, we have our view, our regular through our camera, through our lens, that we can see our real world, but layered on top is something digital. So I can see my table and I see a cat jump from the floor up to on the table. And now it gives me this illusion that that cat exists in my real world, even though it doesn't. And then virtual reality, on the other hand, is something that's completely digitalized. It could be something that was recorded, like a video. It could be an image. It could be something that was created on this digital world. But ultimately, everywhere you look, top, bottom, left, right, behind you, you're going to see something that's not real. It's not in your real world. You're no longer where you're at anymore, what you see. So it gives you the illusion that now you've been transported somewhere else. So there's different ways of using the technology. I hear often like, which one's better? Hey, AR or VR? Let's get this battle going. And maybe I'll do a Twitter chat on that one day just to see how people's responses are. Because I think we have people that are very enthusiastic about one or the other. But I think that there's different uses for both, for sure. There's different reasons why you would use the different technologies. And we're certainly seeing them starting to overlap in the tools that we see. So you asked for kind of my top favorites, and that's always the hardest question to answer because I very rarely give, hey, this is what you need for everybody, because I don't think that's the case. I think people really need to have a goal. What do they want to accomplish? And typically what we do with technology is we throw out the technology first. Let's make our curriculum connect to what technology we want to use. Whereas I think with any technology, we definitely need to look at what our goals and our objectives are and what technology that can support. Sometimes it's not technology at all. Sometimes it's hands-on. So, it's a hard one for me to give you like, yes, but if you were looking for some tools that kind of cross different curriculum, different grade levels, then there are some tools that I can definitely recommend. I think on the VR side, there's some really easy implementation with virtual reality, such as Nearpod, using some easy ways of just bringing in that technology and allowing somebody to go and students to go on this, virtual field trip. And then we have tools like CoSpaces, which is actually creating your own virtual reality experience and being able to share that easily. And people can go in and go see your spaces. On the augmented reality side, interestingly enough, we're seeing these merge cubes just becoming super popular. So there's different uses for it. It's very easy to use because the merge cubes have QR codes all around. And so as whatever app you're opening it up that works with the merge cube, you're going to have many different experiences available to you based upon the app. So that's some easy uses and can be across the board. And, again, augmented reality, I think a lot of people kind of reference back to Erasmus, now HP Reveal, which is not great. It's kind of gotten worse throughout time, but there are some tools on creating your own augmented reality, such as Metaverse. I would say that would be that next level of interaction and uses. But I can go on and on. It's hard to give one, but one thing I will say when it comes to AR, VR, is we're seeing this new technology being released through Apple and through Google, such as ARKit. It was released last summer for developers. The technology that we have available to us now is really looking at mixed reality. And what we're seeing with the mixed reality and the things that are happening in interactions is that no longer just this experience where, I see something that's kind of floating around in my space, or something that's tied to a specific image that I have to look at it on that image. But instead, we're starting to see the augmented reality being used in our space by identifying where the floor is, where the wall is, where is that table, and helping to interact in our spaces that feel much more realistic. And ARKit 2 was just released this past summer, so we'll see this come out in the fall. But we're going to start seeing, collaboration. So no longer just my interactions in these different augmented reality, but now my peer across the table from me that's also having that interaction, or across the world. So we're going to start seeing this, collaborative, interactive experience in augmented reality that I think is just light years ahead from what we've had in the past. So it's really exciting to see those types of technologies getting released.
I want to ask you maybe a sidebar question, and it's kind of like pop culture and VR these days. I don't know if you saw Ready Player One or read the book, which is definitely a virtual reality piece about how that could change society. But also on Netflix, there's a show called Kiss Me First, I think is the name of it. That's also a virtual reality piece. Are you interested in the pop culture surrounding VR, and any thoughts on that, and how that maybe will help or hurt education in VR?
Yeah, that's a great question. I liked Ready Player One. I did not like the language. There was a lot of language in that movie, because I brought my whole family, super pumped about the VR aspect of it. I remember in the movie, though, my 9-year-old daughter leaned over and she goes, "Mom, wouldn't this be crazy if this existed?" And I go, "Well, it kind of does. Like, we have spaces already in VR." And she was just like, "Can I get this for my birthday?" Like, she was just like, "All right, let's use it." So I think I went out and got an Oculus Go as well. Definitely how I convinced my husband is it was for professional, but I knew that it was not educationally sound enough to really justify that purchase. But I brought it home. I was kind of directing my kids. I have 3 kids, and so I was saying, "Hey, go do this, or go to this page, or go try this out, or go experience this." So I was kind of directing them at the beginning, and then as time went on, though, they started, getting on Oculus Go on their own, not with the directive. And what I found is they wanted to spend endless hours on Netflix and Hulu, and it blew my mind, because I'm like, the TV's right there, like right there. Why are you doing this in VR? The TV is right there. And they were like, "Well, I don't want to watch it on there. I want to go into my own space, my world, my room that I've created, and this is mine. All these other distractions around me are gone. Now I can completely focus on this." Which, having 3 kids, we can all understand what that's like, getting distracted. But at the same time, it blew my mind, because it was the same concept of kids watching other kids play video games, watching hours of somebody else playing video games. It's like, what is going on here? Just play the video game, But that highlights the fact that how this technology is being used may not make a whole lot of logical sense to us adults and educators on how this can be used. But if we watch how our students are using it and how our kids are demanding that, then maybe we can get a little bit of insight on how powerful this technology can be. I'll give you an example of how powerful I think that this can be for our classrooms. A couple years ago, I did share this 2 years ago at ISTE, but when I was sharing on VR, but one of the examples I used was I went to a first grade classroom. They said, "Hey, come on in. We want to do some VR stuff. We'd love to have you. Can you help us set this all up?" So, yep, great. So we had this one station with, viewers that were actually going in and kind of playing, like going on this journey with dinosaurs. So this little boy clear across the room was clearly the most excited kid out of any kids that I've ever had any experiences with on the VR front. By the time he finally made it full circle around into my station, he was the first one there. He was ready to go. He gets in there and immediately starts walking off, putting his hand out there. And I'm like, "Hey, you're silly, come on back, stay right here." Next thing you know, little guy's over there again, walking into tables and almost saying, "Hey, remember what I told you, you do this again, you're going to lose it. And sure enough, he lost it, you know. So we come back and we end that station, and I said, well, what did you think? And he said, that was amazing. He's, telling me how much he loved that. And he goes, so anyways, I want to ride that dinosaur. And I said, oh, wow, okay, that's really crazy. Good thing they're extinct, right? Okay, yeah. So anyways, I want to ride that dinosaur. And I said, okay, well, this kid has an imagination, so let's just roll with it. Let's see what he has to say. I said, well, are you sure about that? That sounds a little dangerous. What makes you think that dinosaur is going to be okay? And he said, no, he was a good dinosaur. He let me pet him. So he was actually out petting the dinosaur in this experience, which is why he kept wandering out to that dinosaur. He was under the impression that he could, in this case, walk to that experience, which in this particular instance, he could not. Our technology is getting us there. Absolutely. We have it now. Even on our mobile devices, having identification of our space, that we can actually walk around our space and go to these different places. But at the time, he didn't know that. But his mind told him that it was that real, that he was actually petting this dinosaur. And so therefore, he was going to be able to ride it on this next adventure. So I think, reflecting back about pop culture and this, it's really asking us questions about this technology, that how far do we go, right? I'm watching a show that I'm super into right now on NBC. My husband and I have been like every Wednesday night, we're like on it. But I just watched the episode today without him, and he's all frustrated. He's like, oh, why didn't you wait for me? But it's about virtual reality and how they're using it to help people kind of cope with their, things that they've faced, whether that be, PTSD, whether that be, loss and just kind of coming to grips that person's gone now. So it's kind of went through all these different types of scenarios of how they've used VR. And then there's somebody that goes in and helps them come out of this space because people don't want to leave. They don't want to come back to reality. And I think that could be very real, because I go into Oculus Go sometimes, and it takes me, once I come out of it, first off, you kind of lose track of time. But then when you finally come out of it, you're kind of like, I still see like things moving and shifting. Like your brain is still trying to make sense of what just happened. So while this technology is incredibly powerful to help us, it's also, something we really need to be responsible about. The time that we use, in these technologies, what are we doing to our brains? How long is too long? What kind of interactions are safe, and what, how do we explain reality versus virtual and augmented reality? So, I'm excited about it, and I think it's really powerful, but I think there is a responsibility that we have as educators that we really need to take into an account.
It's a great way to kind of, and I've always said knowledge reduces risks. Actually, it's not my phrase, it's somebody else's, but I do think for any technology you want to know about, you can harness it appropriately. So I do encourage all of us as educators to dig into AR, VR before the kids dig into it for us, try and help be that bridge keeper to keep them safe, and also to make powerful learning experiences by harnessing it for some great stuff. What was the show? You mentioned the title of the show you're watching.
I think it's called Revere or Reverie. I don't know exactly how to pronounce it. They talked about it at the beginning. Are you hearing me okay? Okay.
Yep, okay. I'm hearing you. Yeah, sorry. I'll mute myself.
I think on your end, I don't know if it's a technology feedback or something that's going on. It sounded a little computerized, but yeah, that particular show, it's been pretty clean. I'm a fan of, really something that for the most part you can watch with your kids, but it's very violent too. So it's really graphic and accounting some things because it's dealing with this virtual world. I think that some of the parts that are really appealing to VR that we're finding in education is empathy, is really being able to relate to people and their circumstances and being able to go to those places. And when you go there and see those things, you're going to understand and relate at a whole different level than you would if you're kind of in your own little segmented location. One of the things that I often share is how many times do we ask our students to write about the ocean? You know, we ask them to write about what it feels like in the ocean, what kind of sea life we might see, some of the things that you might deal with, the mathematical aspect of wind and speed and all that, So you're constantly kind of pulling up these different topics like the ocean. But how many of our kids have never been to the ocean? So we're asking them to read about it, to write about it, to describe it, but yet they've never had that experience of that for themselves. And I think it's really powerful, again, in relating to others. And I have lived in different parts of the country. I've lived in the North, East, South, and West. And I think it's helped me be more well-rounded. I've been out of the country only a few times, but that, to me is the next step, really being able to collaborate and connect with people beyond my own small little world and my understanding. But I think virtual reality does that. We're going to see that certainly with augmented reality, more relatable to our lives and our world, and the clash. We have a tool called Figment out there, Figment AR, where you can actually see your real world, and then you can add in a window into your space. And inside of the window is a 360 image or a video that you can take out of your camera roll and have it go in there, or use one of their defaulted images. But you can literally stand here and then walk through with your device. You walk through that window, and now you're inside of that window. You're in that world. But then you can look through that window and see your real world outside. So, these AR portals, I think, are really powerful because it makes 360s a little bit more practical and realistic for what we would do, as opposed to let me transition to this next scene, and immediately I'm somewhere else. Whereas when we're walking kind of in and out of these windows, but what if we learned culture this way? What if I said, I'm going to bring you to Argentina, and over here in this window, you're going to walk through, and that's going to be their food, types of foods that they're going to eat. And I want you to go in and explore and go look around and see that. And then over through that window, you're going to go through and look at the clothing, what kind of clothing they might wear, and over through that window. And then, oh, watch out, here comes this, whatever animal we might encounter in Argentina. And, my terrain changes and things in my classroom. So while we're in our physical space, we can then bring in these different experiences into our classroom in a very real way that I think help tie into that learning in a way that we couldn't do without the technology.
Well, I think it's a great way to kind of end the segment. And I think what you're talking about, I'm certainly picturing, the educational potential of VR. So your book is something that we can get, and it's really kind of a starter guide for teachers just digging in. Is that
right? I wanted to have something out there that was foundational. So here is where you may not know the technology. So let me go in and kind of describe that technology. Here is some really good things to think about when you're ready to implement it into the classroom. This is not a one person, type solution. One person trying to bring it in is going to run into a million obstacles. So, really getting a buy-in from all different departments and moving forward for the best implementation plan. And then, from there, really having the lesson plans, because I would go out and year after year, I'm presenting at conferences. I would see these same kinds of people over and over, and they're really pumped about the technology. You'd see in the next year, hey, how did it go? Did you get to use it? Oh, I didn't even know where to start. I love it, but I don't even know where to begin. So I think the lesson plans were really essential. And I think for companies to really consider that they need to have those lesson plans built into their content that they're creating for classrooms as well, because they really need to see it in black and white. And then, of course, at the end, the tools outside of that they can go in and use. And I do talk about the merge queues. I talk about ARKit apps, which are phenomenal. I talk about different kind of, breakouts and scavenger hunts and, storytelling. So kind of topical type resources is really giving that foundation for the starting point for AR, VR, and immersive technology in education. And I'm actually talking to ISTE now about book 2 and really taking that off to more of a personalized approach, and hoping to have something like that possibly by next year.
Awesome. Sounds great. Oh, we've already gone past our time, but it seems like we've been
I know.
talking for just 5 minutes, but you've done a great job of just walking me through, and I think other people through, just how VR and AR is going to kind of blend into education. So before you go, let me just ask you one quick speed geek question. I try and do this at least once, so we'll give it one spin. I don't know if can you see it?
I can.
All right, so here we go. Let me just bounce out here too. And this is a good one. So what is your whimsy? Star Wars, Star Trek, Harry Potter, you name it.
I really like Harry Potter, but I think Star Wars for sure would win over any of those any day. Definitely go to the first day release of Star Wars, every movie, which is a lot of fun. But yeah, that would be mine.
All right, let's just do one more quick one here. Let's see what we get. And, well, what's your tech trend to watch out for? I think we might know that.
Yeah, I think that immersive technology is definitely out there. I think we're going to start seeing a combination of immersive technology working a lot more with artificial intelligence. And, we're going to start seeing these all collide to where these experiences are going to be much more beneficial to our daily lives, as well as flawless, something that isn't so weird, holding this big, Ready Player One in itself is like, oh, that's cool, but who really is going to sit there all day long doing this? We can't walk around like that. We can't interact like that, right? So I think to some extent there's this technology is amazing, but we're going to start seeing it really kind of be more seamlessly in our real world. It's like you're wearing glasses right now. That's your everyday world. And I could see something like that really coming into play in the future.
Great. Well, Jaime, keep up the great work. Thank you so much for talking with me, and enjoy the rest of your summer, and we'll be keeping in touch.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. And the opportunity to share this. I really appreciate it.
You're doing great stuff.
All right. Thank you.